because I don't ever want to go to prison. And if I'm not getting paid to go there, I literally do not want to be there. It's terrible. It's not what you think it is. It's not cool. And there's some people that are like, oh yeah, like running around the streets, doing all kinds of illegal activities, and they don't really realize that if they get caught doing something or they end up doing something very bad, that they're gonna end up in prison, and it's gonna change their whole life, and it's not gonna be
It
good.
was very difficult, but it's hard for me to say this was a bad experience. I think if I wouldn't have had this experience, if I wouldn't have gone through these things, like my alcoholism, my anxiety, my depression was already really at a catastrophic level. Me getting in trouble was kind of really one of the last nails before the coffin was actually shut. So I really take it as a blessing to be able to still be here, even though I've gone through this process, but to still be here, to have completed it, to be at the end of it, to have a happier story. But it doesn't mean that I have a free pass. I remind myself every day of the blessings that I have, how grateful I am, and how your freedom is very, very, very fragile. At any given moment, you could lose your freedom over dumb mistakes or dumb choices. My neighbors, the owners, we really didn't get along very well. I have a lot of dogs. They weren't very big fans of dogs. So to make a very strong point, they built a block wall. So that really alleviated a lot of our issues, till they moved out for a while and they started renting, which were relatives of theirs, and they were renting, and there was a lot of traffic going in back and forth through the house. They have a iron gate, so a lot of the traffic wasn't parked in their particular yard or in their carport. Being the next door neighbor, a lot of the traffic was spilling over into my front yard, in front of my mailbox and my carport, and it was very difficult at this point in time, me living alone now, getting back and forth in my carport. And I work nights, I work different hours, I work in a grocery store. Things were a lot different now. So just the simple fact of being able to drive in my carport without having to ask people to move their car, just have a bunch of traffic in front of my house. Now, the traffic, could have been to a lot of family visits, but I tend to think the traffic was due to other illegal activities, but that's here nor there. But either way, the traffic was in front of my house. We had issues back and forth with it. It was actually addressed on New Year's, where they had a party. I had to call TPD out to have some cars moved, and me and these individuals had an altercation, and I was threatened, and all this is documented, and I have a police report for these things. But events really came to a head Valentine's Day, where I was pretty intoxicated, and I had kind of a very highly emotional day. It was Valentine's Day. It was the first Valentine's Day. I was single. It was Valentine's Day, and I came home. There was cars in my driveway. I asked these individuals to move. They didn't really want to cooperate. I called TPD. There was nobody hurt. There was no accidents. TPD at this time was very short-handed. They said they would send a unit out as soon as they could. Time went by. I didn't handle things in the best of situations, so I was eventually, let's just read what they wrote. On or about the 14th of February 2021, Loran Stephen Glenn, myself, with the intent to disturb peace or quiet of my neighbor, on or with the knowledge of doing so, recklessly handling, displayed, or discharge a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument with firearm in violation ARS 13-2904A6. So I was charged with a class 6 felony in this case. I was detained. I was taken to the local county jail. Woke up the next day wondering what happened, and spoke with the judge and understood I was in for a serious amount of work ahead of myself.
If someone uses a weapon in the commission of a crime, if police conduct a traffic stop and they ask, the occupant, hey, is there a weapon in the car? And they say no, come to find out there is. That falls under weapons misconduct, Arizona revised statutes. Defacing the serial number on a gun is a crime. And anyone that is a prohibited possessor. So if you were convicted of a felony, rights haven't been restored, you can't legally own or possess a firearm, that is something you get arrested for. If we're gonna arrest someone and take them to jail, if we have the intention of asking them incriminating questions, something that would trigger the Fifth Amendment, and we would give them their Miranda advisements. If it meets certain arrest-like custody, or we have the intention of taking someone into custody and questioning them as well, then yes, we would read them Miranda. People sometimes have a misconception that that is mandatory when arresting someone. It's not. So if you're arrested for an offense, misdemeanor, felony, whatever it may be, you'll get searched, instant arrest. Depending on the circumstances, your vehicle may also be searched and sent to arrest. If you have money on you, it gets counted right there on camera with another officer right there. So you can't say I had $10,000. No, I only have 200. So all their property is basically inventoried right there. They get taken to the jail, and then the booking staff pretty much takes over from there.
I had a firearm on me, and I was disorderly. I was acting out in public. So me and my neighbors at this point, we really had a misunderstanding about what was right at this moment. They were parked in my driveway. They felt that they weren't doing anything wrong. Like I said, if I was in a real positive or even just a sober state of mind, I don't think I would have been acting out the way that I would have. I don't think that I would have definitely not had my firearm on me. I mean, there's so many different variables in the situation that could have ended very, very tragically. Like it could have ended with me hurting my neighbors, me hurting the police officers hurting me. It would have ended very terrible, so my expectations of the cops' response and my level of intoxication, those two things correlated together with anger and a lot of pent up issues throughout the year and things that have happened the years prior. It was a very, very volatile situation that could have ended up way differently, which would have been way worse. But I think, just in general, me waiting for the cops, I should have just waited inside, let them do their job. And that's what they explained to me the time before when I filled out the cop report. But just me being in my frame of mind and feeling so threatened and so overwhelmed, it's where you make those choices to take things into your own hands, is where things don't work out very positively or in anybody's favor in that moment. Because I could understand that the police officers were probably in a high level of stress. They're trying to figure out what's going on with my neighbors. They're trying to deal with the person who's not the best of people to deal with in those situations. And then I had a firearm on me. So when I think about what I actually endured and what I actually end up having to do, it's not the kind of lifestyle I want to live. It's not the kind of life I want to be at. Jail and all that stuff isn't for anybody, but it's not for a person particularly who just wants to go to a 9-to-5 and just really wants to just fly under the radar and just have a good life. So this to me was a very, very, it was a very expensive learning experience, but it was a very humbling learning experience, and then my neighbors, it's not ironic, but those individuals, as soon as all this happened, they moved out relatively soon. So all blessings come in disguise sometimes. So me figuring out my issues and them no longer being there, everything does have a way of working out, and I'm just glad it did work out the way that it did. Is it a hard lesson learned? Yeah, but sometimes we have to learn things the hard way in order for it to really stick. So